On September 18, 2014, anyone over the age of 16 living in Scotland will have the opportunity to make a choice: remain a part of the United Kingdom with England, Wales, and Ireland, or become a separate nation. This choice is most certainly an historic and complex one, and will affect not only 5.3 million Scots, but 63 million UK citizens as well, particularly regarding the economic futures of the countries and in their ability to continue to be relevant world powers. Therefore, it is worth asking the question: is Scottish independence from the UK a long overdue victory for freedom, or simply a rash and foolish idea that will hurt both Scotland and the rest of the United Kingdom? Perhaps it is first best to understand a little of the history of the relationship between the two lands. Scotland and England have been united as Great Britain since the Treaty of Union made Queen Anne sovereign of both countries and gave Scotland representation in a new Parliament of Great Britain in 1707. Prior to that, Scotland had been its own independent country, having fought to win that freedom over many years and achieving it after the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314. The two kingdoms were superficially united under the same sovereign with the coronation of James VI of Scotland as James I of England in 1603, but as previously stated were not officially united until 1707, and the union that followed largely came to be seen as beneficial to both the Scots and the English. Old differences die hard, though, and after fighting side by side during the World Wars, the Scots and the Brits found themselves taking different paths, a fact that was exacerbated by the breakup of the British Empire following World War II. Furthermore, the 1970s and 80s saw the gulf between the English and the Scots grow even larger, as independence was pushed for but not achieved in the 70s, and the Conservative government of Margaret Thatcher throughout the 80s left the Scots feeling as if they were an afterthought within the UK. The election of Tony Blair as Prime Minister of Great Britain resulted in the establishment of the Scottish Parliament in the late 90s, but the UK's involvement in the American War on Terror was particularly unpopular in Scotland, and many Scots felt that they were forced into the conflict because of their ties with England. Recent developments in England have further pushed the Scots toward independence, as the dominant Conservative Party in England is at odds with the more Labour Party-inclined Scots, who question whether the British Parliament is truly acting in the interest of the entire United Kingdom when it seems as if they only have a small voice. This split is explained by an historian of Scotland.
One driving force for the vote is the widening gulf between the policies pursued by the government in Westminster, led by the Conservative Party under Cameron since 2010, and what the Scottish people want. Many Scots are strongly opposed to the current Westminster government's attempts at reform, or in their eyes, to dismantle the welfare state. Illustrating that sentiment, at present there is only one Conservative MP in Scotland. Since the period of Margaret Thatcher, there has been a growing divide and a sense that what Scotland wants has become more and more different from England. Looking further back, Scotland and England have been growing apart since the demise of the British Empire in the last century. The decline of the Presbyterian Church in Scotland, which had provided a sense of self-government and Scottish identity, has also played an important part in the desire for independence.
Questions about the economic future of Scotland and the UK are first and foremost in the minds of many Scots and Brits regarding the question of independence. Most Scots want to continue to use the British pound sterling as currency, in spite of British Chancellor of the Exchequer George Osborne threatening that if Scotland walks away from the UK, it walks away from the UK pound. There's no legal reason why the rest of the UK would need to share its currency with Scotland. The newly independent Scotland would also be responsible for covering a portion of the national debt of the United Kingdom, which the Scottish leadership acknowledges it would help pay, but that it would certainly put a strain on the Scottish economy. Furthermore, most Scottish people have a favourable view of the European Union and are worried that gaining independence from the UK would prevent them from entering the EU as an independent country. Their apprehension is perhaps justified, as José Manuel Barroso, the President of the EU, remarked that it would be extremely difficult, if not impossible, for Scotland to join the EU, as it requires a unanimous vote from the other member countries. Issues about Scotland's ability to sustain itself economically also persist, as many people question whether sole Scottish ownership of their goods, tourism, and oil reserves are enough to justify splitting from the UK. For now, the Scottish leadership is confident that the sale of oil from the North Sea, coupled with tourism revenues, would be more than adequate to support Scotland, especially without having to share the income with the rest of the United Kingdom. But many experts question how long Scottish oil can continue to be produced and sold. Britain also has a lot to lose if the Scots vote to leave. Of course they would lose tax revenue from Scottish industries, but they would also lose the base for their nuclear submarines on the north coast of Scotland, and would have to find a new place to position many of their nuclear missiles. The English are also understandably worried that a smaller United Kingdom must certainly be a weaker United Kingdom, and worry about losing their ability to exercise their current level of authority within the international community. British Prime Minister David Cameron often accentuates this point in his speeches concerning the Scottish vote for independence.
We want Scotland to stay. Great Britain would be less great without the Scots. The world sees the United Kingdom as a type of brand, and if Scotland left, the rug would be pulled out from under that reputation. We would be diminished without Scotland. All 63 million of us would be profoundly affected. We matter more in the world together.
Many outspoken Scots do not share Cameron's views, however, the least of those being Alexander Salmond, the leader of the Scottish National Party, First Minister of the Scottish Government, and primary voice of the vote for independence. For Salmond, this is an historic opportunity not to be missed, and the Scots must take advantage of it.
If we vote no, Scotland stands still. A once-in-a-generation opportunity to follow a different path and choose a new and better direction for our nation is lost. Decisions about Scotland would remain in the hands of others. A yes vote means that Scotland's future will be in Scotland's hands, and that life will be better and fairer for its people.
Likewise, many Scots themselves.
Those of us who want Scotland's independence want it because we have no further interest in being part of a UK brand. We no longer want to punch above our weight. We seek a fresh understanding of ourselves and our relationships with the rest of Europe and the wider world. If Scotland were independent, we would have control of our own welfare and immigration policies, look more to our Scandinavian neighbours, and rid ourselves of nuclear weapons. We want independence because we seek good governance and no longer think the Westminster government offers that, or social justice, or decency. We find the prospect of being a small independent nation on the fringe of Europe exciting and look forward to make our own decisions, even if that means having to fix our own problems. We'll take the risk.
Many polls, however, show that most Scots do not want to be independent from the United Kingdom, and most Brits want the Scots to remain as well. Nevertheless, much could change in the months leading up to September. In the long run, though the Brits and Scots will always have their cultural differences, they will also always share their island, and it seems better that they should work out their differences rather than split apart as they face the challenges of the 21st century.